Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Kim Tant, and I work in Marco's marketing and sales operation role. I'll be your host today, so I'll be monitoring the chat. If you have any questions or run into any issues, feel free to drop those in, and then I will make sure I answer those for you or get those questions answered at the end of our session. We are recording the session. We're going to send out a follow-up email with the recording link, and then if there's any information that we share, any articles, we will go ahead and send those out with you as well. So just wanted to say welcome, and we'll go ahead and turn it over to Chris Darr.
Thank you, Kim. All right, today on our agenda is topics to consider when you're looking at a new collaboration or phone solution. The different types of platforms that are available, different integrations that you could be seeking, analytics and reporting, who's responsible, and why Marco. I'm Chris Darr. I'm the General Manager of Collaboration and Partner Solutions here at Marco. With me today, I have Eric Hassler, Senior Solutions Consultant at Marco, and Chris Kadoon, Senior Solutions Architect at Marco. This slide might look familiar or not familiar to a few of us. Communications has come a long way over the last 25 to 30 years. From string and cans to operators to rotary dial phones to the digital yellow phones, or used to be white phones back in the day, to IP, and now everything is mobile. The collaboration allowing us to work mobilely from anywhere. This next slide here is acronyms for phone and collab. We all love to use our acronyms, and this is a pretty extensive list of different acronyms that you might hear throughout today, or when you're looking at investigating or searching for a new collaboration system. AI is probably the most popular right now and relevant in our face, asking us like, hey, how do I use artificial intelligence to improve communication and collaboration or process or automation within my organization? CPaaS is a communications platform as a service. You got CC or CCaaS, which would be contact center as a service, which also can be very similar or different than CX as a service, right? The customer experience as a service. IM is good old instant messaging that we've had for a really long time. You've got POTS, which is plain old telephone services. PBX, which is the replacement of the legacy, hey, I got to buy my phone features from my carrier or my phone provider, to I've got those at my fingertips now on my own. So that would be a PBX or a private branch exchange. You got your SIP, which is Session Internet Protocol. SIP trunking as a service, or hey, I need to buy my communication pipe. That's SIP trunking as a service. You've got Voice over Internet Protocol, and then UCaaS or UC, which is Unified Communications or Unified Collaboration as a service. So those are some of the acronyms that get thrown around in the voice and phone and collab world. With that, I'm going to turn it over to Mr. Hassler to cover different topics to consider.
Chris, I remember back in the day having the large telecom dictionary just to keep track of all those as a printed version. Luckily, that's kind of gone away. Things have definitely become a little more simplified. But yeah, topics to consider as we evaluate new phone systems. Few things that you'll want to kind of begin to think about as we're looking for systems. First would be growth and flexibility. Think about your organization and think about what your growth strategy is over the next, say, 3 to 5 years. Are you going to be adding additional locations, or are you going to be expanding into new geographies? As you evaluate systems, it's great to keep that in mind so that you don't end up pigeonholing yourself with a technology that can't grow with you, or perhaps with a technology partner that might be based solely in a certain region and not able to expand well with you to support any new locations that you might grow into. In addition, consider the timing. When we look at deploying any new system, oftentimes it's around that 45 to 90 days from the time you say, okay, let's go, to the time that you are up and running on that new platform. There are a few things to consider ahead of that. Oftentimes you want to think about any end of life of your existing phone system. Also consider what contracts might exist for that existing system. It could be any service contracts that you have with partners that are helping to manage that, or it could be from the carrier side or the phone company that's providing the dial tone. It's great to consider those contracts as well to ensure that as we're building out that time frame, you're not unexpectedly hit with any termination penalties for breaking a contract early. And then also the budget side. As we look at the budget, in the past, most phone systems were procured through a one-time large capital expenditure, or maybe that was spread out via a lease. But today, there's also a lot of solutions out there that are based on an operating or OpEx expenditure model. So rather than having that large capital expenditure, we just have a monthly recurring charge that could include the phone system and support and updates. So as you evaluate systems, oftentimes on the front end, it's great to understand what is the preferred model for your organization. Is it that CapEx or that OpEx model? And then also customer experience and analytics is especially big one these days, as we find more and more phone systems are bringing in some of the call queuing and almost call center type features down to the phone system itself without having to procure a large, contact center environment. So it's good to start thinking about how are your customers engaging you? Are they, calling in and sitting on hold, or are you looking to ensure you have first call resolution, live answer, and the data around that uh, in interaction to be able to manage your staff and ensure timely responsiveness for your customers. And then integration and automations. This is a big one as well as we think about that customer experience. And Chris will get into more of this in a moment here around the AI side. But essentially, this could be creating some efficiencies for your staff. Perhaps you have people answering those calls coming in from customers, and they're doing some of that swivel chair activity where they're taking payment information, or maybe they're checking an order status or looking up inventory information. If that data already exists inside of another tool, perhaps we can integrate that and provide some automation around it to be able to first more quickly have the customer get the information they need, but then also free up your staff. If they're just doing a swivel chair between apps, maybe we can free them up so they can spend their time working on something a little bit more in depth that couldn't be automated. Another important topic to consider is disaster recovery and security. Consider, think about your organization and consider what is your tolerance for any type of outage or service related impact. Some organizations say, you know what, if my phones are down, it's not that big of a deal. We'll be back up tomorrow, no problem. And others are on the far side of that spectrum saying, absolutely not. We can't be down for a minute. That is, the lifeblood of our organization. We're losing revenue for every minute we're down. So consider where you are on that spectrum, because that can help determine what solution will meet your needs. Do we need to be in active, geographically diverse data centers and build this robust environment, or is something a little bit more simple going to meet those requirements? And then also, from a security perspective, it's important to consider what regulatory or compliance requirements might exist inside of your vertical. If you have HIPAA requirements, if you're in healthcare, or if you're doing a lot of payment processing and need to meet PCI compliance, or sites in Europe and you need to comply with GDPR, those are great things to consider on the front end to make sure solutions you're evaluating will meet those requirements. And then platform management. Consider who on your staff, if anyone, is going to be there for day-to-day type changes and management of the phone system. There are solutions out there that are essentially self-managed, all the way to those that are fully managed from a partner that's there to take care of everything, down to resetting a voicemail password for someone that forgot it, for example, and everything in between. So think about the head count and your IT staff and who would be best fit to ensure that those day-to-day activities can be taken care of. With that, I will hand it over to Chris Kay.
Thanks, Eric. You want to go on to the next one there. So I'm going to kind of run through some of the different platforms that are available in the market today. The first one here is probably the most popular. It's the cloud or hosted voice model. Different acronyms again, kind of the same thing, but pros and cons for kind of each of these here. Pros for the hosted voice platform. Typically, most of the platforms offer unified calling, meetings, and messaging all on the same platform. So, some customers may be using like Teams today, for instance. Teams, you could enable, meetings, messaging, and calling all on the same platform, or maybe WebEx, right? There's a few of them that are out there. But it is pretty popular, or I guess wanted in the market, where you have a single platform that can do everything, right? Instead of having 2 or 3 different platforms to do each of the different tasks. Another big thing with hosted is going to be minimal to no on-site hardware. So what that means is, like a traditional, or in the older days, like the PBX, you actually had to install a server on site, connect up your different cross connects or patch panels or whatever it may be to make the system work. And then obviously it would reside in an on-site data center, right? With hosted, everything's off-site, with the exception of desk phones and maybe a soft phone application loaded on your PC or your mobile device. Telephony service providers usually included, so that's a big one. With the older traditional PBXs, you had to go to a phone company and get your phone lines, and typically you paid for those separately. With hosted, it is included for the most part with most platforms. So your long distance, your phone numbers, local calling, 800 numbers, those types of things would be included. OpEx model. So Eric mentioned this. OpEx means essentially you pay as you use the system. So typically most hosted systems, it's going to be per user per month. There may be several different packages available depending on what feature set each user needs. And then obviously you can go up and down on a monthly basis based on, headcount, et cetera, within the company. Managed services included, maybe optional. Most solutions like Marco sells a couple different varieties of the hosted voice offerings, but most of ours do include the managed services. So if there's a problem with the system, you can call in or open up a service ticket via email or a portal, and those services would be included, right? You wouldn't be billed any extra to get help with, maybe resetting a voicemail box, or maybe changing the greeting on an auto attendant or something like that. Inherent redundancy is another big one. So most hosted solutions do have multiple data centers, right? Geographically separated. So if there's something that happens on the East Coast, maybe the West Coast takes over, something similar to that. But there's inherent redundancy, so you don't have to build it out on your own. Another big part is updates. So with hosted solutions, if you have an application on your PC or maybe a mobile app, updates automatically happen in most scenarios. Some solutions you can set them to, have to be pushed out by a system admin by just clicking a box or check button, something like that. But most often they are automatically pushed out. So you don't have to worry about applying patches, or if there's a new security vulnerability or something like that, it's just automatically taken care of. And then the predictable, flexible cost model. So again, with the OpEx model, it's per user per month. It's going to cost if you want to, hire, let's say 5 new employees, it's going to be set a price, right? Per user per month type of thing. So the next here is going to be the cons. Reoccurring costs forever. So with the OpEx model, as long as you're using this solution, you're going to be billed for it, right? So let's say you have 50 users and you're getting charged, let's say $15 a month per user, and you're on the system for, let's say 5, maybe 10 years. It's going to be the same monthly cost ongoing as long as you're using that solution. Pretty straightforward. TCO usually is higher on a hosted solution over a set amount of time. So you'll see what I mean on the next application here for like an on-site PBX. But the TCO, again, with these, you just keep paying as you use the solution. The longer you use it, the more it costs you, essentially. Vendor lock-in. So typically when you put a hosted voice solution in, there's a certain vendor that you'll pick, right? So you might interview or check out 3 or 4 different types of products. You'll pick one of them, and then once you do that, obviously you're locked into that particular vendor typically. So meaning it's not as easy to change or just go switch to a different vendor at that point. And then going with that, your contract lock-in. So usually there's some type of a contract term associated with a hosted voice product. So typically 36 months is what we see in the market. Some do less, some do more. You can, typically go up to 5 years or 60 months at the most. And then the last kind of thing is the internet reliability. So hosted voice is hosted in the cloud or somewhere out in the world that's not on your premise. And how you connect to that is across your internet connection, right? So you need to have a reliable internet connection for this product to work, reliably, essentially. Most often customers will have maybe 2 internet connections with something like this. They'll have a really good, maybe a fiber-based internet connection, and then maybe a secondary, like a broadband, maybe a cheaper, internet connection as a backup. And then your firewall most often can switch between the internet connections if there's an outage. So, it comes back up pretty quickly, essentially. All right, so the next one's going to be on-premise. So this is kind of the older model. It's been around for a long time. On-premises means it's installed on-site at the customer environment or in your customer environment. That could be, in on-site in the customer environment. It could be off-site, maybe in like Azure, if you have your own instance of Azure or tenant. Can be virtualized on-site. So if you're running like VMware, Hyper-V, Nutanix, one of the hypervisors on-premise, most often it can be virtualized and put into those environments. But again, it's going to be hosted, in your environment, right? Whether it's on-site or in the cloud. CapEx model or lease. So typically with these solutions, there's a one-time cost up front, maybe a larger purchase price where you buy the software, the licenses, any of the hardware, equipment that you may need. And then, you own that, throughout the term of the, environment, however long you're going to keep it. So 5, maybe 10 years, depending on, the scenario. TCO decreases, obviously over the life of the system. So if you do buy the system and you, let's say, use it for 10 years, obviously the longer you use it, the more TCO you get out of that product. And then the last part of this is the managed services optional, depending on the solution. So most often when you put an on-premise PBX in, you have the option to add some type of a maintenance agreement to it. So some customers pay as they go. Maybe they have an in-house team that can maintain, add users, remove users, that type of thing. And then they just pay a service provider like Marco to come in and upgrade the system maybe once a year or apply patches, those types of things. But managed service offerings typically include things like your remote move add changes, maybe software upgrades, things like that. Cons, higher upfront costs. So again, when you buy the system, there's going to be a large capital purchase upfront that you have to come up with the cash for. There is lease options, like I didn't mention that in the last one there too. Some customers will do an on-premise and they'll just lease it and make monthly payments and then usually own it at the end. Requires phone service from a phone company. So you still need a phone company to bring on the phone lines or maybe the SIP trunking service, whatever it may be, but you need to purchase, direct dial numbers, long distance, all those different things to connect to the on-premise system to make it work. Updates are not automatic with the on-prem. So again, you'd have to pay someone like Marco or have a service agreement with someone like Marco to, apply those patches or the software updates on an ongoing basis. Ongoing software maintenance costs. Typically, there is a small like subscription that you have to have for an on-premise system to allow you to do software upgrades and maybe contact tech support if there's an issue with the system. And then the redundancy needs to be built out. So with an on-prem system, we actually designed the system however you works for your environment essentially. So it could be a single instance, so if that single phone system lost power, maybe all the phones go down, or maybe you want some type of a high availability design. We can put in maybe 2 or 3 different instances at different locations throughout your environment to have some failover capabilities, right? So build it out on your own essentially. And then the last option is kind of a newer one, hybrid subscription voice. So this is kind of a combination of on-prem and hosted. The hybrid scenario or subscription side of it essentially is it's like the on-prem, but you're essentially subscribing to the licenses like you would with cloud. So you're paying per user per month, depending on the number of users that you need. But the system is still on site or installed in the customer environment. So again, in your data center, maybe in a hosted data center that you have, like Azure, for instance. But essentially, you have control of the system. It's installed on your site, but you still have kind of the scalability where you can go up and down on a monthly basis based on the number of users. So like I said, OpEx for the system users, usually it always includes the software maintenance costs within the OpEx expense for the users, which is a good thing. CapEx on hardware yet, so you still have to buy the phones or maybe the servers to host the system on your premises. Predictable cost model. So again, the subscription licenses typically are a fixed fee, so much per user per month. So again, if you add users or remove users, you know what that cost is going to go up and down. And then again, the managed services are usually optional on a solution like this, just like the on-prem. Cons: requires phone service from your phone company. So much like the on-prem, you still have to have a service provider to provide your phone lines, right? Separate bill for that. Updates aren't automatic. So you still have to update the system or have someone like Marco do that. Ongoing maintenance costs. That more is going to be around like the servers that you have on site. Maybe you have a VMware environment, but you have to, upgrade that on your own or have someone do that for you as well. And then again, the redundancy needs to be built out just like it would with the on-prem, right? Design it however you see fit. All right, so the next section, your integrations, AI and automations. So we have a couple different scenarios here with the integrations and automations. So this one's more to do with the integrations. So like Eric had mentioned earlier, the solutions can be built out to integrate to different applications that you have running in your business. There's lots of different scenarios or ways to integrate to these different applications, but some common ones are going to be like screen pops, or maybe database integration. So example of a screen pop would be an incoming call comes into maybe an agent or a normal employee, and it opens up like a Salesforce account screen, right, to that particular customer account. Database integrations, maybe you have like a self-service IVR, so people can call in and maybe check their account status or maybe their order status or open up a new ticket or something like that. The phone systems can integrate to different databases. So we can look up information, maybe read it back to the customer, and again, write data back to that type of or typical application. Some examples: ERPs, CRMs, EHRs, banking cores. Depending on the industry that you're in, those may or may not make sense, but there's lots of different things that we can integrate to. Device integration. So a lot of customers have meeting rooms on site, or maybe they have video devices sitting on employees' desks where they can join meetings. It's always good to check if those devices can be integrated to the new UC solution, right? So example, like a Cisco Room Kit, right? That could be in a meeting room, a video camera, a sound bar, some microphones, maybe a touch panel for joining the meetings. Can that be integrated into the solution? So maybe you're using like WebEx, for instance, right, for your UC solution. A lot of times like Cisco Room Kits obviously would integrate to WebEx very easily, but maybe they don't integrate to like a Teams environment very easily. Some other ones there, Poly, Crestron, Logitech. So there's lots of different devices that are available for meeting room spaces or even just on a desktop that could be integrated too, depending on the solution. Teams integration. So everyone, or a lot of people use Microsoft Teams, and there's different integration methods depending on the solution, but some businesses would like all of their users to be using Teams, right? So maybe they're already doing their chat and their meetings in there, and then you're looking to add voice or calling. If let's, for instance, if you do like WebEx or maybe a Zoom integration, they all have applications that you can snap right into Teams. So it's kind of a single interface for the users, right? They don't have to go back and forth between different applications to access the calling versus the meetings, etc. Calendar integration. Most solutions do integrate to calendar. Depending on the scenario, like how you're using your calendar, but they could maybe schedule meetings right out of the UC solution and it puts them on their calendar. Maybe you schedule a meeting, or maybe you schedule it in Microsoft, for instance, and it adds it into the UC solution meeting system. Social media integrations, those are pretty popular now. So if a company has like a Facebook page and maybe a customer is posting on their Facebook page, not all companies monitor those on a real-time basis. And we have tools that you can monitor, for instance, like your social media, like Facebook page. If someone posts something on there, maybe it's a negative review and you want to respond to that within an hour or something like that, we can have notifications pop up in the UC solution to basically respond to those in real time. And another example is appointment reminders. So maybe your doctor's office or something like that, and you have a system that has all of your appointments in it. Maybe you want to send out like a text message, or maybe call a customer, maybe send an email to them reminding them about their appointment, or even maybe just confirming that time with them. Those are all possible with the solutions as well. Let's move to the next one here. So this one's more on the customer service side of it, so more on AI. So there's lots of different things you can do on the customer service side to kind of automate and make your representatives maybe respond quicker, or respond better, more intelligent to the customers. Some of the self-service tools are going to be like chatbots and order status. Chatbot typically is like a website for a customer may have. There's a chat option, chat with us now, maybe 8 to 5 during business hours. It pops up on that website. They can click on it. And a lot of times the chatbots, we can build things in to automate responses. So maybe they want to check their order status, or maybe they want to schedule an appointment or something along those lines. Without that chat even getting to like a real agent, we have AI tools that can respond and maybe make that appointment automatically without even having to go to a real person. Obviously, you can always have them escalate to a person as well. The next one, voicemail transcription and summaries. So most of the solutions now do offer some type of transcription, and this is just for a normal user, right? So you leave me a voicemail message, I get an email, or maybe check it within the application, and it's going to be transcribed and typically summarized, right? So you can see action items or things that you need to take care of right away. Maybe you send it off to someone to do it for you, or whatever it may be, but it's way quicker than actually playing the message, or maybe it's a 3 or 4 minute voicemail, right? To getting through that. Call recording sentiment and analysis and keyword alerts. So if you're recording calls, there is AI tools built into call recording to look at things like sentiment. So if there's a big long pause in the call, maybe the customer is kind of escalated, they're angry, whatever it may be. We can put flags in place to let maybe a supervisor know, or maybe after the call, you want to go back and look at all the calls that had issues, easily findable, within the solution. And then keyword alerts is along the same lines. If certain things are being said within phone calls, we can have automation built into that to bring those to the forefront essentially, and pay attention to those particular calls. Closed captioning, that's a newer feature that's available. So if you're on a meeting or maybe a phone call with someone, closed captioning obviously is just printing out the words on the screen that are being said. So maybe someone is hard of hearing, maybe they're speaking a different language even. That's helpful in a bunch of different scenarios. And that kind of goes with the next one, live language translation. So if we're in a meeting with someone, I speak English, someone else speaks French, or whatever it may be, you can have live translation happening during those calls or those meetings to obviously communicate with that person better. And then the last one's agent help and coaching. There is tools available. Maybe I'm working with Eric Hassler here on a phone call. I'm having issues finding something, maybe an order, whatever it may be. There's options for me asking Eric for help, right? And maybe he helps me in the background, or you can even have some self-service type things that pop up for the agent that maybe gives them suggestions as to the answer for whatever the conversation is about. So lots of different things you can do there. Last one here is more on like a personal basis, right? So everybody within a company or any employee could use these types of tools. Transcription and summaries, and these are going to be more in like in meetings or maybe chats or instant messaging. So if you're using some type of instant messaging tool to chat with someone, let's say you're out for a week and you come back and there's 10 pages of chat going on. You could click a button and it would summarize that for you, right? Tell you here's the key topics that were talked about while I was out, and it's going to essentially tell you those things. Action items, right? So if you're in a meeting and let's say it's a 2-hour meeting, after the meeting, you kind of forgot what all the things were that you were going to, do after that meeting. Essentially, action items can present that to you and kind of again summarize the things that you need to get back to whoever it may be, or maybe take care of after that meeting. Catch me up, that's a pretty popular one in meetings as well. So if I join a meeting maybe 10-20 minutes late, there's a lot of conversations going on and I just want to hurry up and get caught up to what's going on so I can jump into the conversation. That is a nice tool. Rephrase and tone. So if you're maybe sending a message to someone like in a chat, for instance, or instant message, and you type it in and boy, that doesn't look good. It sounds like I'm angry or whatever it may be. There's a button you can click that essentially allows you to change the tone or maybe rephrase it, maybe it sound better, or maybe you want it longer or shorter or whatever it may be. You can pick different options. Highlights and chapters. This is typically in meetings or maybe just even like a video that you're doing to send out to somebody. You can have highlights and chapters. So if you want to skip to a certain place within the meeting just to learn about a certain subject, it'll automatically put those highlights into the meeting for you. Analytics. So some customers want to know like how long their meetings are. Are people using video? Was everybody muted during the meeting? Those things are easily findable with analytics. And then the last one really is just kind of an automatic thing. Some of the UC solutions have audio and video optimization built in. So if maybe one of the participants in a call or a meeting was having bandwidth issues because they're out in the country or something like that, the tools built in the background in these meeting solutions will try to fix the audio or fix the video so whoever else is joining that meeting or they're talking to won't even know it's essentially happening for that particular end user. So that were just some of the things, a lot of information, but some of the things that are built in for AI. Obviously, there's a lot more than that, but these are some of the most popular ones that we're seeing in the market today. I think I'm back to Eric now.
Thanks, Chris. I'm a big fan of the meeting AI. It's great to have those recaps and action items, knowing that they're going to come at the end of your meeting so you can actually focus and participate more in the meeting rather than trying to jot things down quickly while participating. So great tools there. Next, we'll take a dive into some of the analytics and reporting and then the security side. When we're thinking about the analytics and reporting, this is really more around the side for customer experience or maybe that contact center type environment. So perhaps you have multiple call queues coming into your environment where you're assisting customers, maybe customer care group or inbound care groups. And this could be phone calls or it could be digital or omni-channel, meaning bringing in some of those things like text messaging or the social media integrations or perhaps email all into the same platform, allowing your agents to be able to not only serve customers via phone call, but perhaps through some of those other channels as well. When we get into the analytics side, it's important to consider what are the KPIs or your key performance indicators that you are tracking or would like to track to ensure that you are providing a positive experience for those customers. That usually we break that down into a couple levels. The first being, what is the time to engagement for a customer? Meaning, how long did they sit on hold in a queue, or how long did they wait to speak to somebody through a web chat or instant messaging? Or also the employee engagement side. So how many calls were presented to an employee that they may not have answered? Or how long are they spending on calls, or how long are they putting calls on hold? Essentially giving you data to make educated business decisions around instead of working from feelings, which can sometimes be a little soft. Is it a really busy day, or perhaps is that agent just a little bit hangry? They need a Snickers and let's get back to work. This will give you the data to make those educated decisions. Another thing we're seeing a return of is the post-call surveys. So I'm sure many of you have experienced those. You call into a queue, you get the assistance you need, and then at the end you're prompted with the ability to complete a survey and be able to grade that experience that you had. Those are definitely still an option and something that can be reported on, as well as the call and screen recording. So that would be the ability to record that agent, your staff's calls, but also their screens. So perhaps there were a training opportunity that were to arise, you'd be able to see their screen or even multiple screens, be able to see what they clicked on and what tasks they took to be able to assist that customer and maybe provide some coaching to help improve that experience. You probably hear about WFO, workforce optimization. This is something that we typically see in organizations that have around 50 agents or more. This gets into the scheduling of agents. So actually coordinating the shifts that people are working. That can even provide those shift notifications to people from some of the solutions and use actual data again to help drive the staffing needs so that you have an understanding of how many agents are anticipated to be needed for certain days of the week, time of year, etc. And then there are also solutions for outbound dialers. We'll often see these in areas where maybe there's some debt collection or calling on invoices. This is a way to create campaigns around a list of clients and be able to have the phone system make those outbound calls if very effectively or efficiently, and then connect those to the live agents. Deeper dive on security as we're evaluating platforms. It's good to consider which of these might be important for your organization. Not all of the solutions out there offer the same components around security. One big one is single sign-on. So if you have, for example, an Active Directory integration to enable your users to use that same login information that they're already using in other apps, this could allow them to use that to log into the applications for the phone system as well. In addition, multi-factor authentication. So being able to put in that additional layer of security to ensure that someone really is who they say they are when they're logging into the platform. Along with end-to-end encryption. Not all platforms provide encryption in the same way. So we look at the end-to-end encryption, meaning what is happening with our data that's in motion, our voice, our video, our instant messaging and chats, that real-time communication. It's important to consider, is that encrypted and is that needed for your organization? Not all solutions encrypt all of these different components. And then also encryption at rest. So what is going on with your data as it relates to your voicemails, your meeting notes, those summaries, the transcriptions and action items, what's happening with your voicemails and call recordings? Are those encrypted? Do they need to be encrypted? Those are important questions to ask. Along with then the any type of requirements for PCI if you're taking payments, or HIPAA if you work in healthcare, to ensure that we're handling that data correctly. A common one for PCI, for example, would be we don't want to record any credit card information because now that's in scope for PCI. There are solutions that can offer automatic redaction of that during a recording so that when those that credit card information is said on a call, it's automatically removed from the recording, making sure that that's not something that you're responsible for maintaining. Next, who's responsible for the phone system itself? There are a few different ways that we typically see systems deployed. On the left would be the most hands-on from the partner organization you're working with. This would be a managed service provider that would be responsible for providing any updates to a system. They would be responsible for any moves, adds, and changes. So if you had a new employee that's onboarding, you could reach out to them and just say, hey, we have a new employee, Bob Smith, starting next week. We want to get him created in the system and have that user have the same rights as Sally. That partner would take care of all of that. Sometimes it's even rolled out where end users can contact that managed service provider directly. So perhaps an end user forgot their voicemail pin. They'd be able to reach out directly to the managed service provider for assistance in getting that reset. That differs a bit from an unmanaged platform with VAR support. In that scenario, typically a customer will have some in-house IT expertise that's fielding those, I'll call it tier 1 type requests. We'll use that voicemail reset as an example. In that scenario, they might be doing those things on their own, but when it comes to maybe major version upgrades of a phone system, some more in-depth project-based work, customers in this scenario might choose to work with a VAR that's going to go in and do those major upgrades, or perhaps help them expand out a new location and onboard a whole bunch of new users. Again, more project-based assistance. And then self-manage, that would be for an organization that has a large IT team. You have telephony experts on that team who are familiar with managing phone systems, managing users, assisting with any type of service impacts or outages and escalating those to either manufacturers or the phone company. Again, the self-managed for much of the large organizations with large IT staffs. So with that, I'll hand it over to Chris Darr.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Hassler. So my partner with Marco. So Marco has strategic partnerships with, you want to go to the next slide there, Hassler, sorry. All right, strategic partnerships. So our strategic partnerships at Marco are, our Cisco relationship, our Mitel relationship, and our Microsoft relationship. As you can see down below, we have many of the Mitel advanced certifications, whether it be in contact center, finance, healthcare, hospitality, public sector. We also have many additional, certifications with Cisco and also Microsoft. In addition to these strategic partnerships, we also have many other additional partnerships at our fingertips, whether it be in Formacast, where we need to integrate some door access or visitor access, to Poly HP audio codes if we need to add in a session border controller on site. We have many additional partnerships to help meet our clients where their needs are and be able to support the customer's needs moving forward. Implementation lifecycle management. So this is a big one, right? So, from a initial engagement in the sales process to engaging and getting onboarded in a job acceptance and closure, there is a life cycle that this does go through. So, having a professional back-end project management delivery group to deliver out these solutions is very critical, because maybe the way you're doing it today won't be the way that you're handling calls tomorrow, or it could be changing in the future, right? So, we do provide dedicated project managers to walk you through, like, hey, what happens when somebody calls? Where do you want this to be routed? What's the experience that you want your customers to have? And we'll make sure that, that customization and future functionality is enabled for your customers to give them the best experience possible with a new phone solution. And Marco Managed Voice Services. So Marco does offer managed services, whether it be from a cloud hosted perspective or an on-premise perspective. So you can easily open up, service requests, whether it be phone, email, or our Insights portal, remote and on-site. Support is included in that. Those support desks are staffed with certified engineers dedicated to support our voice customers. And, our service metrics down below kind of, answer to that, right? We measure all of our calls and tickets in real time. 98% live call answer rate, 97% of all of our tickets can be remotely remediated. So that's also very good. And then I think next we're going to turn it over to Kim with some questions.
Yes. So thank you for those people who have dropped questions in the chat. If you do have any others that you want, this is the time to drop those in. But Hassler, I have two that I want to have you help me answer. If my business does not have great internet / bandwidth, then is cloud voice like off the table for me? Oh, I think you're muted.
That's definitely a good thing to consider. As we look towards cloud solutions, a lot of them will have tools out there that you can utilize to test your bandwidth to make sure that it is going to be of the quality needed to provide voice services over. There are also ways that we can leverage tools like secondary internet connections with something like a SD-WAN or software-defined wide area network to help in prioritize traffic or make sure that that voice traffic is utilizing the best performing internet connection. If those strategies aren't available, or perhaps you're in a geography where there isn't a reliable, good quality internet connection, then absolutely that's where the premise-based phone systems might be the best fit, where we can then use traditional legacy phone lines or SIP technology, PRIs, whatever it might be, to deliver local connectivity rather than using the internet.
Thank you. And this is another good one too. How do I keep my same phone numbers when I'm looking at a new system? Is that even a possibility?
Absolutely. That is definitely based on geography and who the phone provider is. The vast majority of the areas in the country, we find that phone numbers can be ported. However, there are some more regional telcos that don't participate in that number portability. Um, if it's something that you've evaluated in the past, I'd probably take another look at it. There have been some more regions opened up in the last handful of years. Um, but if they can't, then I'd say reach out to us. There are some strategies and ways that we can help make sure you can retain your phone numbers, whether that's using an on-premise based phone system or a bit of a hybrid model that allows you to leverage the existing dial tone and still move to a cloud or hosted environment.
Great. And then Chris Kadoon, this one was a good one for you, I think. Can we integrate a new system to an old paging system?
Yeah, for sure. Depending on the hosted voice solution, I'm guessing is what you're talking or asking about. But yes, there is lots of ways to integrate um, like a legacy paging system, or maybe even have analog stations, on site, like old analog phones. Yet there is solutions available. Um, they're called terminal adapters, IP analog terminal adapters. But yeah, they're fairly inexpensive as well. So.
Great. And then this is another one I think might be good for you. Our company is already using Teams. Should we look to put our phone system there too?
That's a loaded question. I would probably advise to reach out and speak to you directly with that one. But yeah, I mean, yes, maybe, no. It depends on what feature set you're looking for. Each of the solutions that are out there have a different feature set and how they function, and depending on what you're coming from, that may or may not be a fit, right? So that's kind of what we do here. And Eric's team, we have a team of consultants that kind of front end those different options, I guess, and go through all the different feature sets and what's available and what's not available in different products. So.
And this might be a good one. As I say, I'll open up to Kadoon or Hassler for this one. But when do phones go end of service or end of life? Could I plan for 10 years with a phone system? Is that realistic?
Yeah, it really depends again what solution it is, but most often the handsets are probably, 10 years, maybe up to 10 years, I'll say, maybe a little bit before 10 years. But if you're, again, like a lot of the manufacturers, they'll release new model lineups every few years. And if you buy one of the brand new model lineups, it's probably going to last you 10 years. But if you buy one that's been around for 5 or 10 years already, then probably not, right? It just depends. But most solutions are very good at allowing you to have older legacy handsets, and they'll continue to work on the solutions. It just may not be new firmware or updates available for them. So.
Yep. This one came in too. So I'll open it up to anyone. Does the hosted product integrate with Teams and also give a dashboard screen for like a lab receptionist?
Yeah, there are absolutely ways that live receptionists can work in a hosted or Teams type environment. Again, it depends on the overall needs, whether we're looking for a full receptionist console where you can see multiple call queues coming in, be able to quickly transfer those to other people, put them on hold, things like that, versus simple call queuing and logging in and out of queues. Yes, yes, and yes. There are a lot of ways that we can accommodate that.
Great. Well, that's our last question that I have. I don't see any other ones coming in. I was going to say, Chris Darr, do you want to go ahead and wrap us up?
Yeah, thanks everybody for attending the session today. Kim will get the questions and the recording sent out to everyone, and we appreciate the time.
Great. Thanks, everyone. Have a great day.